Let's evaluate this Florida roofing business through our Fleming Deal Index criteria. Now, we've either completed ourselves or advised on over 40 small business acquisitions, and this is one of the tools that we use beyond just the pure numbers and the pure models to evaluate a business and whether it's a good target. Now, our first and most important criteria we're going to look at on any deal is buyer fit. Now, for the buyer fit criteria, we typically only even look at businesses that are a good fit for our buyers. So, meaning they have at least experience in an industry adjacent to the one that they're buying. But when we were looking at this roofing company, we were looking at a decade long roofing industry vet. So, he was a 5 out of 5. He was a perfect fit for this business. Our next criteria is going to be the organizational structure. And this is where this business really failed. So now this business really was a one-man show. He was literally doing everything himself. Now we have to give him credit. He did a great job setting up systems and processes to be able to run the business this way. But there was only one employee. So as far as organization, we have to give it the worst score possible, a 1 out of 5. Next criteria is seasonality. Now, the roofing business has a lot of seasonality, especially in Florida. It's often going to be based on the hurricane season. And so, for that reason, we give it a 2 out of 5. Basically, that means there's sharp seasonality and there's going to be real strain in the business during the off seasons. Next, we're going to look at customer concentration. This particular business, they didn't market to builders, they marketed directly to consumers. So they had no real customer concentration. So they're going to get a perfect score there, 5 out of 5. Now, for this business, the EBITDA margin was huge because they did run so efficiently and they only had the one person working there. So they got a 5 out of 5 for the EBITDA margin. And just for reference, this one had a 40% margin. Our criteria to score a 5 is 20% or better. Looking at our next criteria, longevity. How established is this in the marketplace? Now, this business was only a few years old, scoring it a 2 out of 5. It has some processes in place, it's somewhat established, but not very much. Now, for valuation, because this was a one-man show, not necessarily a full-on business, the valuation was really low. This was going to sell for less than 1 times SDE. So 1 times SDE, that's an easy 5 out of 5 on valuation. And for this type of business, that's probably a fair value. Now, for the cyclicality, these are weird because it is based on the storm cycle. You're going to have years with bigger storms than others, but it's not going to necessarily be based on the economic cycle. There is some discretionary work that's done here, so we're going to give it a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5. But usually you're going and doing a roof because someone had something happen to the roof. Next, cash conversion cycle. This business had a pretty good cash conversion cycle. They took 33% when they booked the job. They had 66% by the time they started the job, and they required payment for the final 33% once the job was completed. So we give it a 3 out of 5, basically saying the cash conversion cycle is neutral. We probably could have given it a 4, but my assumption is that a lot of the people don't pay actually the day it's completed, and especially the insurance company, that there's actually a lag. So yes, payments due the day that the job's completed, but it's not always paid the day that it's completed. Now, if we add that all up, it gives us a score of 43 out of 53, which is above our threshold of 39 or better to be considered a buyable deal. So even though this had some major flaws, it also had some major pros about it that somewhat balanced it out. And really, one of the things that made this work is the buyer profile. So if you had anyone other than a perfect buyer, this isn't really going to meet the threshold. Yes, it is going to be a full-time job, more than a business, but it's a high-paying full-time job. 700 grand a year is a really good full-time job, and it's a good base to start growing off of. So it's a great starting point to grow something much bigger. Check out how more businesses score, give us a follow, or check out our profile. If you want to see how the deal that you're working on scores, go to the link in our bio and try the Fleming Deal Index.